Okay, welcome everybody to the theory portion of the second workshop series called Yoga Arudam. Um, this is the fourth class. We're halfway past the uh, series, and some of you asked me about you know um, wanted me to stitch together the progression of this workshop series and the flow of concepts, which is why I made this document. Did any of you get to see this? You did? Okay. If not, don't worry. I'll make a video also. So it's easier to understand. But what I wanted to say is that these concepts, they're they're not trivial. They're more experiential, and I'm trying to give like an experience, or trying to you can't convey a lot of these things in words. You can convey it only using energies. So, and I tried my best to put all these in words in here. So it starts with the first workshop, what was covered. So the general idea is all these concepts that we covered in the first workshop: the body's fire, the ujjayi breath, the prana, mudras, all these things. These are the tools to get into the steady state of mind. What these, as we saw today, when the prana starts flowing, that's when the action starts happening. And this is how your mind becomes calm. Of course, a ton of health benefits occur from all these, the stimulating the Jata Agni, which we did with all the forward folds. Ton of health benefits, but the reason why all these were devised is to settle the mind. And Patanjali calls it prayatna and shaitalya. So to go into deeper states, you have to put in a little more appropriate effort. It's not brute force effort, because that will result in injury. And we also saw in one of the previous classes the body's fire, how and the diet, importance of diet, because like throwing sand on a fire, putting food, too much food into the body, it destroys the fire, and that makes the body susceptible to diseases. And the theme of the second workshop, building on the first workshop, is to use all this to rest the mind. Because if we have to do our yoga practice every day, if it's just a chore, or you're just pushing yourself, at some point the body will give up. So in fact, a lot of people that I know who are advanced asana practitioners, they're teachers. It's quite unfortunate, because to attract people, and unfortunately the world is like that they think a greater yogi is somebody who can do fancy poses and is also therefore a better teacher, which is far from the truth. So these people, because they have to attract people, they have to do all these advanced asanas. In fact, Patabi Joyce would say one of the reasons for advanced asanas is demonstration. And they are at a point, as you get older, the body definitely doesn't cooperate. And at some point, they give up, they suffer injuries and all that. So this is unhealthy lifestyle. Instead, if we focus on the joy that comes in some of these poses, and initially you may say, I don't find any joy, but just when sometimes when the body relaxes, you'll find this spark of relaxation and joy. Try to latch on to this and grow it like a spark becoming a flame. And it takes time. Otherwise, everybody, they'll be in heaven, right? I mean, most people in the world are miserable. So that's the truth. So it also needs effort on our part. So when you cultivate this over time, you will find that you have a better reason to go to the mat than it being a chore. So that is the entire theme of this workshop. So I'm trying to connect all the points, right? Starting from the first. So mind placement in asana practice is a very important thing. And through the text used for this is the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The first workshop used a lot of examples from the classical Hatha Yoga texts, Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Gheranda Samhita. Hatha Yoga Pradipika it is not considered a scripture. It is a yoga text. It was written around 1400 something CE. So Swatma Rama, the author, he's a great marketing guy. He uses fancy phrases. And when I taught the first workshop series, people's jaws were dropping because all the fancy words, it becomes much more easier to teach. The second one is very sublime and subtle, but it is far more powerful. And here it is, the sixth chapter is uttered by none other than Krishna, Bhagavan Krishna. So in the Indian Vedic text, there are two types of texts. One is the Shruti, other is the Smriti. Shruti is what is heard. Shruta means what's heard. It's revealed to the sages in deep meditation. All the Vedas and the Upanishads, they do not have an author. They know that the moment they put a name, their ego will blow up, everything. They are very smart. So they just, whatever came to them in the deep meditation, they just passed it on. Shruti, and then there's Smriti. Smriti includes all the other texts which were heard by great sages, and they wrote it down and compiled it. The Mahabharata, within which the Bhagavad Gita is there, it's strictly a Smriti, but it's equal to a Shruti. Shruti is like ultimate thing. It's considered sacrosanct. And the Bhagavad Gita is as good as a Shruti because it's uttered by Bhagavan, the Lord himself. So what you are listening to is that powerful. And at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, he distinguishes two types of people who listen to Bhagavad Gita. One are the serious seekers. He says those people will get moksha. That is, they will not be born again, because every time you're born, you have to go through all the difficulties of life. You cut away from this samsara, cycle of samsara. Then the other is a casual seeker. Okay, they come, they just sit. I mean, they carry one or two words they understand, but they just come just out of curiosity. Bhagavan Krishna says, those people, they get heaven. So heaven, the concept of heaven is that you reside, the Atma resides somewhere for long thousands of years, and then again you have to come and take birth. So whatever happens, you get either moksha or you get heaven now that you're here. So that's what is said in the Bhagavad Gita. I'm not making this up. Okay. And the organization of the sixth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there is 6 portions. And all these are relevant to the asana practice. If you go through, if you haven't had a chance to read this, please do so. I'm not forcing or anything. If not, I can make a video also if you find it boring or difficult with some chance. But it ties our asana practice or whatever yoga meditation practice to the thing in the grand scheme of things, what the scriptures say. So the 6 portions of the Bhagavad Gita, I'm not making the 6 portions. It is what is there in Shankara's commentary. As I just follow Swami Paramarthananda's commentary based on Shankara's commentary. And so this is how this chapter is divided. So there's a lot of logic and reasoning behind this. It's not from my mind, which is not enlightened or even intelligent. So the general disciplines observed throughout the day. Here, Krishna, you might think it's like very boring or dull. Krishna is talking about self-control of the senses, all these things. But in the end, your asana practice, all this to get into this doing flexible poses or sit in meditation, for people to just sit for 1 hour, it's torture to most people. It is the ultimate form of torture for a lot of people to be able to sit in meditation for 1 hour. But to get into this state, there are a lot of self-control has to happen. The Kurmasana, what we try to do today, is a symbolic of that. A tortoise, like a tortoise withdrawing its limbs, You withdraw the senses from the sense objects and turn it inward. But you may say humans are naturally pleasure seekers, right? So we are always attracted to pleasure, and we are repulsed from things that are unpleasant. So the trick here is to find the pleasure inside. This is what is called Hlada, and Krishna also talks in great detail about it. We are coming to that part now, so we will see that. So in Kurmasana, what it symbolizes is the tortoise is holding a big mountain on its back, and it's being churned, and great things and awful things are coming from this churning process, from the ocean. Throughout it, the tortoise is maintaining its equanimity. So that is the symbolism of this pose. And that's the first portion of this chapter. It is about sense control. So that's again, Krishna says, for the unconquered self, the self will remain like an enemy. Anatmanastu shatrutve vartate atmaiva shatruvat. Like in the place of enemy, the self becomes like an enemy for the uncontrolled self. That's what Krishna says. Then we talked about the specific disciplines that are observed before meditation. This includes the proper place, posture. We briefly touched upon the proper meditation posture. And as I told before, even though this chapter is on meditation, all the concepts used are equally applicable to asana, because the end goal of asana is our mind is very restless, right? So sthira sukham, sthiram, it's to get stability. That is the ultimate goal of asana. All the health benefits which we are practicing for, that's great, but that's not the reason the asanas were devised. So we talked about this, Krishna talks about this, not too high, but not too low. So you need a little bit of an angle that keeps the spine straight. So if you're sitting flat, your back is slouched here, okay? So then moving on. Now we are in the portion of nature of meditation and the benefits of meditation. That's what we are going to see in today's class. And Krishna says that, in fact, Pattabhi Joyce would say, how do you know, when people ask, how would you know if a pose is correct? Because every teacher, it's a big mess. You go to one teacher, say, this is how the pose has to be done. You hold this, you hold that. All others are wrong. This is the most integral good for the body. You go to the second teacher, that teacher will tell exact opposite. It is a disaster. And anybody who says this is the only way to do is quite incorrect. Okay? So Pattabhi Joyce would say, you know that asana is done correctly based on the stillness of the mind. If the mind becomes still, then you know the asana is done correctly. That is his guidance, which is why in this Hatha Yoga practice, there are not too many instructions. I used to attend a Iyengar yoga class, and they talk so many terms. My God, at the end of it, I'll feel giddy. It's just, well, it has its own benefit, but in this style of practice, the instructions are minimum, and you tune in to the feelings that you get. It's the energy flow, okay? And here, Bhagavan Krishna says, when the mind, throughout this, you listen, Atma Samstam Mana Kritva. That is the mana, mind, Atma Samstam, place it on the Atma. What it really means is going inward, which is what we are doing in the asana practice. We are tuning first. Atma is a stretch goal for us. But first, we tune into these feelings that we get in the body, right? So to place the mind, otherwise the mind can be disabled. And this is how you start finding joy. All right. Then Bhagavan Krishna also uses the simile of a lamp in a windless place to denote the mind of a yogi in meditation. So these are all the nature of meditation. It's covered in that. Then the fruits of meditation is what we are going to see. Krishna calls this great bliss. Okay? So we will go on to So last time we saw one definition of yoga. All right. Okay. One definition of yoga is the state of severance of union with pain. There are many definitions of yoga, and here again, having abandoned all the desires from sankalpa and controlling all the senses from all sides, then comes a very important shloka. So I will chant this first, and you can chant. Um, and for those online, you can keep it muted, otherwise there's a echo that happens, and you can chant. Shanai Shanai Ruparamed Buddhyadruti Gruhitaya Atma Samstam Manakritva Na Kinchitapi Chintayet. So here Krishna says this entire yoga, the progress, it is a slow progress. So Shanai means it happens slowly. In fact, the word people know Saturn, the planet Saturn, they call it Shani. It is actually Shanai Charan. They call it Shani Swaran in the Indian languages, but it's called Shanai Charan. What it means is that Shanai means slow, Charan means move path. So it's a slow mover. This planet has the slowest time around the sun. And that's why Shani, it's considered to be a great teacher through discipline. And when problems come, they stick for a long time too. So, okay, Shanai Uparamit, slowly progress. Buddhya Dhriti Grihitaya, with intellect firm. Dhriti means firm. Atma Samstam Manakritva. Samstam means placing the mind on the Atma that is going inward. Nakinchitapi chintayet, not thinking about anything else. So this is Krishna's teaching on this particular sloka. Okay? Now, this Shanai, the reason I'm quoting this from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika is that it is used throughout the scriptures. It's slowly, you can't do things rapidly, it will cause injuries. And this is in context of pranayama. Swatmarama says, Yata Simho Gajo Vyagro Bhave Vashya Shanai Tataiva Sevita Vayuhu Anyata Hanti Sadakam. Just in the context of pranayama, same holds for asanas. In asanas, if you rush, you may tear a muscle, which is better than going crazy, which is what will happen in pranayama. So just as the lion, elephant, or tiger is tamed slowly, so the breath is controlled slowly. Otherwise, Hanti Sadakam, the practitioner gets killed. So Swatmarama uses strong, fancy language. So he makes he doesn't hide facts. He tells them as such. Okay, so then moving on. Krishna says the mind is very restless. Yato nischarati manaschancchalam astiram tatastato niyam yaitat atmanyeva vasham nayet. So I will explain this. Yato nischarati. From whatever causes this restless mind wanders. Nischarati, charam again is like Sanai Charan, means wander away. Whatever cause the mind wanders away, what kind of mind is this? Manas chanchalam astiram. Chanchalam means it's just unsteady. Astiram means it is restless. It's not steady. Okay. Manas chanchalam astiram tatastato niyam yaitat. From those causes, niyam yaitat means restrain. Niyamas, like a restraint. Niyam yaitat atmanyeva vasham nayet. Bring it back into the Atman. Let it focus on the Atman. Vasham means don't just bring it back. Grasp it and bring it back. So he uses a strong. Vasham means just grasp, nayet, yeah, bringing it back into the Atma. So that is the idea here. And what happens due to this? Krishna says, Prashantamanasam yenam yoginam sukham uttamam upaiti shantarajasam brahmabhutam akalmasham. These are considered some of the most important verses. As I said, this sixth chapter, nowhere in the scriptures is the meditation being condensed so properly. So the sixth chapter is generally called the primer on meditation. Of course, the glories of meditation are talked about extensively in the scriptures. Yoga Sutras talks about, so in fact, about more than nearly a half of the sutras are about meditation. 3 sutras are for asanas. So meditation is talked about but a lot, but this clearly gives all the details of the meditation in one chapter. It's very condensed. Throughout, of course, even in the Mahabharata, everywhere you will find benefits of the meditation, comparing the meditation to a still lake, the mind of a meditator to a still lake, all that. But here, what happens, what Krishna says is, Prashanta Manasam Yenam, that is the supreme bliss comes to yogi of peaceful mind. Prashanta means peaceful. Prashanta Manasam means peaceful mind. Yoginam Sukham Uttamam. Um, Uttamam Sukham means, Uttama means high. That is the highest bliss comes to a yogi of a peaceful mind. Upaiti Shanta Rajasam. Rajas is the turbulence in us, right? Shantifying the rajas. Shanta rajasam means this turbulence is pacified. So to that yogi who has pacified his passions, and then what? Brahma bhutam akalmatam, one who has become one with the Brahman. Brahman is the supreme God, or whatever you call it. And this person is akalmasham. Once he gets into the state, he or she is sinless. So this is what Krishna tells in this shloka. And this Yoga Sutras also talk about this. When the person is gone in, be it in asana practice or in meditation, when you're able to find peace inside there, tune into these subtler sensations, then what happens? Tasya prashanta vahita samskarat. This is a very important sutra from the Yoga Sutras. Every time the Yoga Sutras actually go into it in detail. The Patanjali talks about the mechanics of meditation. Every time we meditate, there is samskaras. Every thought, action leaves imprints in your system. It is called the samskara, which literally means imprint. When you meditate, the ingoing imprints, that which wants you to become calm and go inward, versus the outgoing one from the senses. So there's a tug of war between the two samskaras. Vyutta nirodha samskarayor abhipava prabhurbhavo nirodha kshana chittanmayo nirodha parinamaha. This is the sutra which talks about this. There's a tug of war. Every time you meditate, the inward tendencies, you make it stronger. And from the you develop the samskaras, and due to that, there's a continuous flow of peace, vahita, flow of samskara. Okay, then again, so in the Yoga Sutras, as I already mentioned, there is no repetition. Whereas in the Bhagavad Gita, it's a poetry, and it's given to Arjuna. Krishna regards Arjuna as somebody who is unfit for a higher a sannyasa or something, and he makes that very clear to Arjuna. If you think you're going to run away to your forest and going to just sit there and meditate 24 hours a day, it's not going to happen. You're going to pick fights and you're going to do something like this because that's your nature. Okay, so here there's a repetition because Krishna is telling this person who's just like us. It's not, we need repetition, keep drilling. And that's what's happening. Again, he says the importance of meditation. He says, Yunjan evam sadatmanam yogi vigata kalmashaha sukhena brahma samsparsham atyantam sukham ashnute. So Krishna here says that Yunjan means striving. Yunjan evam sada atmanam. So the yogi is constantly striving by engaging in meditation. And this yogi is very quickly freed from sins. Vigata kalmashaha, freed from sins. Sukhena Brahma samsparsham. Here, Sukha means very easily. Very easily, he comes into touch with the Brahman, is the infinite. Sukhena Brahma samsparsham. Atyantam Sukham Ashnute. That he or she encounters infinite. Atyantam means so much, a lot of bliss this person gets by coming into touch with this Brahman. So all this, it's said that once you glimpse the Atma, that person is not the same again. So going first step, glimpsing the Atma is a tall order, right? So what happened to Ramana Maharishi? He got this glimpse and his life was changed forever. So even a little bit of going in by tuning into the body, finding some rest in these sensations, that will take us a long way. So that is what is said in this shloka. And then here, Krishna, in a few shlokas, 4 shlokas, he talks about who the greatest yogi, who the greatest yogi is. Here, when the yogi has sensed this very high, this internal bliss, when the yogi has gotten a touch of this, what's called hlada, this pleasure that is not from the senses, but it's outwardly, it's from something deep inside. This yogi sees the same everywhere. For that person, everything else is the same. We saw that samaloshta ashma kanchanaha. For that person, a piece of lump of clay, stone, gold, they're all the same. The samaloshta ashma kanchana is a very important term. It's used, comes twice in the Bhagavad Gita. Here, okay, maybe we can chant this. Sarvabhutastamatmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Samadarshinaha. Okay. So this yogi who's rooted in yoga, okay, Yoga Yuktatma is a word that Krishna uses. So the yogi who's rooted in yoga, that yogi, Sarva Bhutastam Atmanam, all beings, that yogi sees in their own self. Sarva Bhutani cha Atmani, and all the beings, they see their self in all beings, Sarva Bhutani, and all beings in their self, Sarvatra Samadarshinaha, Sarvatra Samadarshinaha. Everywhere they see the same. And that yogi, Krishna praises. And Krishna then adds, maybe this one also we can chant. These are all considered very, in the scriptures, they're considered very important shlokas. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha na pranashyati. So that yogi who yo mam pashyati sarvatra, that yogi who sees me everywhere, and sarvam cha mayi pashyati, who sees everything in me, tasyaham, that person, I am never lost to that person, and that person also does not lose me. Tasya, tasya, of that person, aham na pranashami, I am never lost to that person, and sachamena pranashyati, he does or she does not lose me. Okay, now comes this verse here. सर्वभूतस्थितं यो मां भजत्येकत्वम् आस्थितः सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि स योगी मयि वर्तते. So that yogi, sarvabhutasthitham yoma, the one who sees me established in all beings. Sarvabhutasthitham mam means I reside in all being. Sarvabhutam, all being. Sthitam means reside. Sthiti, like samastitihi, means like residing stably. Mom, I reside in everybody. That yogi, Bhajat Ekatvam Astitaha, that yogi who worships me seated in all beings, Sarvata Vartamanopi, whatever the paths that yogi follows, that person can be a woodcutter, anything, that yogi attains me. Sayogi, Mayi Vartate, that yogi attains me. So it doesn't have to be somebody who's doing uh, like long hours of meditation is great, but even if somebody is not able to do that, yogi who has this sense of equality, where does it come from? It comes from accessing these deep states within. That yogi is very, he attains, or he or she attains me and is um, comes to me. That's what Krishna says. Then comes the last shloka for today. So this is also an important shloka. So who is the greatest yogi? So the greatest yogi is not somebody who does advanced asanas, certainly not that. So Krishna here, we'll have some time, so we'll see a small video on who the definition of a yogi and what yogi is not. But maybe we can chant this one. Atmaupamyena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjuna sukham vayati va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. Okay, so upama means simile or likeness. So we saw a simile previously, like a lamp in a windless place does not flicker. So yatha deepo nivatasto nindate sopama smrita. Yatha, just as a deepa nivatastaha. Nivata means a place without wind. Just as a lamp in a place without wind does not flicker, this simile is used to denote the mind of a yogi. Yatha deepo nivatasto nindate sopamastava. Tatha yogina, like the mind of a yogi. So like that here, that this yogi, Atma Upamyena Sarvatra, the likeness of the self, the yogi, Samam Pashyati, who sees the same everywhere, that for that yogi, Sukham va yadi va dukkam, whether there is pleasure or pain, that yogi remains very equanimous. And in fact, I sent you this an article on how to by accessing these states of pleasure, you can maintain a regular yoga practice. There's a video by Richard Freeman at the end, and it's a funny video. It says yoga destroys your life or something like that. Then he says it's your samsaric life, and he says that some people are very driven, right? In corporate world, they're like, well, the bottom line, they're getting, making the stock go up. CEOs especially, they have to be driven. And when a person starts doing yoga, then for that person, they won't succeed in that, but because they have this access to this great joy. It's whether it's the stock goes up or down, they're not going to care. So they see the same, they become much more equanimous. So Richard Freeman says in that video, these people, they have access to such great states. They're not just disheveled by all these small things that happen. So this Krishna says, Sa yogi paramo mataha, that yogi who's through the likeness of the self, who sees the same everywhere in all beings, that person, whether there's great pleasure or pain, who's equanimous, this yogi I regard to be the greatest yogi. Sa yogi paramo mataha is greatest, param, greatest in my opinion, mataha, my opinion, like considered to me. So that is what Krishna has to say about this. Now let's see if I can, we have a few minutes, I can play a small video. Let's see if this, I'll get to that video. Yeah, it is this video. Let me share this tab.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Grihyate Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Parthanaiveha Namutra Vinashaha Tasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Krit Kaschit Durgatim Tata Gacchati.
So, yeah, Krishna says that yogi is one who has self-control, and that is the key to mastering yoga. So that is Krishna's opinion, not somebody who's doing fancy poses, certainly not. None of the scriptures say that. So I think we are at time. So I will stop the recording here, and if you have any questions, I am happy to answer.